For an independent audit, our political reporter Mzandile Mbeje spoke to IEC Chief Electoral Officer a short while back.
It's not a legal requirement for an audit of that nature to be done. The Commission, of its own volition, is doing one with the Statistician General. He'll be presenting the outcome of his own verification process to political parties later today. So the Commission is not in a position to accede to the request.
There you have it, Commission not in a position to accede to that request. Mzwai, that was in a conversation between yourself and the Chief Electoral Officer earlier. What does the ATM have to say to this?
Well, Desiree, you'd remember that when the first time the smaller political parties protested and complained about the process, the ATM, I think the head of police there, Mzandile Mbeje, was the one really who was the speaker, and then everyone supported him to say they didn't really support this process. As a result, they want an independent audit. Mamabolo has made it clear that the Commission or the IEC is not prepared to accede to that. With me, Desiree, is the ATM's spokesperson here in Gauteng, Nyani Socheko, who is here to respond to what the IEC CEO has said. So you have heard him say the Commission really is not bound by any legalities to accede to your demand.
Thank you very much, Mzandile. Well, I have not really been privy to what the Commission has said in as far as a response to that. But fortunately, I have been attending the NPLC meetings and a lot of things have been said. Part of the agreement we had last time we met was that at 12 o'clock today, the IEC would bring along the Statistician General, whom they have requested to do an independent sample to try and establish how widespread the problem relating to the issues raised are and what could be its impact be in as far as the results are concerned. So what we're waiting for is to meet with the IEC and the Statistician General at 12 o'clock, where we'll get an understanding, because what we've been made to understand is that the Statistician General has independently undertaken an exercise. Fortunately, yesterday in the evening, the IEC, as promised, did send VDs, which are about 1,020, that have been independently identified by the Statistician General, upon which then the Statistician General will rely in as far as conducting the sample to determine the extent of the problem. With the CEO having said the independent audit is not part of the process, I cannot say it is or it isn't. He is best placed to say that. But that has not been only the ATM call or the parties. Actually, there are other parties who have supported the independent audit of the full outcomes of the elections, so that as we move forward, we can get to understand how things are done. So whether or not it can be done by the IEC or somebody else, if it's not within the requirements by IEC, it will be done elsewhere. But that is what we have called for. So there's really not much to be said. And then after the 12 o'clock meeting, ATM will be able to issue a comprehensive response in as far as the way forward is concerned. And that will be informed by the explanation and information given by the Statistician General at 12 o'clock.
So if I understand you correctly, so you're no longer sticking to 11 o'clock deadline that you had made public to say if the IEC does not respond by 11 o'clock, given what has happened?
Well, I cannot say in speaking on behalf of the collective whether or not that is the case, but clearly it is after 11 o'clock now and not much has happened. I myself have just arrived. So what we're looking forward to is the 12 o'clock meeting, and that meeting is going to give us direction in as far as the way forward is concerned. And I also need to understand this. The headline has been also going on the issue of a rerun and all those things. What actually necessitated and influenced this was to ensure that all the issues and concerns raised are actually addressed by IEC and all of that. So the issue is not only about the rerun, it is not about the results. As you would know, I mean, if I were to speak, clearly about ATM. It speaks for itself. The results that are in front of us, they do actually indicate that we have done very well, and we express our appreciation to everybody who has voted for us. We continue to believe that as time goes on, with enough time now going forward, we'll be able to do far much better than we have over the last few months since we established in June last year.
Okay, this is the other issue. When the other parties addressed us yesterday, they made it clear that they don't want any state institution to be involved. And the Statistician General is a state institution. They said that they wanted an independent private firm to undertake this process. So, I mean, are you on the same page with other people?
Okay, there are two things here. There's a call for the independent audit, and nothing has changed from there. There is also a sample that IEC has offered to conduct using the Statistician General. By the way, the issue of the sample was also raised in the NPLC meeting, and IEC did not hide that is the process it was going to conduct. Furthermore, IEC promised it would email all parties involved the sample the sample of the VDs, which are 1,020, which would have been conducted by the Statistician General. We then requested that we need to understand, when I say we, I'm saying parties that are represented in the NPLC, requested to understand what process did this sample follow. Then the IEC responded that they are unable to explain because it's not done by them, it's done by the Statistician General. Then they said they would bring the Statistician General at 12 o'clock. So it has always been a call. So there's nothing from which we are deviating.
Okay, I just want to understand you very, very clearly. So the 11 o'clock deadline doesn't exist. So you're waiting for the meeting with the IEC at 12 o'clock. And then from there, you will inform us of the next course of action. Am I summing you correctly?
Okay, I won't say the 11 o'clock deadline exists or doesn't, but it is now way past 11 o'clock. I'm not sure what has happened. The next thing we are looking forward to is the 12 o'clock meeting. Everything else will be informed by that, and that will only be giving an understanding of the work that the Statistician General, as requested by the IEC, will be conducting. The full audit, you will see, even if you interview other parties, you can ask them, even those who are in the top three, they will tell you they are also in support of the full audit. And it's just maybe how this should have been done that there may have been no agreement to. But that will happen. The full audit will happen. The sample will happen. We're waiting for the 12 o'clock interview. Then we'll be able as ATM to say, this is where we're going as far as this issue is concerned.
Thank you very much, sir. That was the provincial spokesperson of ATM here in Gauteng. Actually, one of the new parties that did fairly well. If I look at the board there at Desiree, it's at 76,000 votes. So it's a new party. In fact, it's one of those new parties that are guaranteed entry into the National Assembly. Possibly 2 members, if I do my own conservative estimates. Yeah, and then we are at 99.97 of the votes counted. So you can see that not much is going to change. The ANC is still ahead with 10 million votes. The DA at 3.6, EFF 1.8, IFP 587, and of course the Freedom Front Plus completing the top 5 at 404,000 votes. So we will wait to hear what the IEC is saying after meeting the parties, as Nyaniso did indicate to us, and then from there we'll be in a clearer position if this process will be challenged or not. Desiree?
I was asking something earlier about the sterling work that Themba Godi did in terms of oversight in the National Assembly, and with everything that's coming now, it seems like his party is not going to feature anyway.
Well, Desiree, this is an interesting situation. Talking about Themba Godi, he is sitting at 19,591. It doesn't seem like he will return to Parliament. So it's one of those parties perhaps that will not make it back to Parliament. And of course, when we did our own estimations, we realized that there are 2 new parties that will make it. The ATM that we have just spoken to will definitely make it based on the numbers, and the Good Party of Patricia de Lille will also make it. So it does appear that Themba Godi is not going back to Parliament, and our estimates at the moment are that perhaps you'd need something like 43,000 votes to get into Parliament, and then he's way out from 43,000. As I say, perhaps 12 parties or 13. And since the democratic process of South Africa started, that has been the range, 12 and 13. It looks set to remain there.
Mzwayi, thank you so much for that update. And now for analysis on the results so far, but also touching on what Mzwayi spoke about with the Chief Electoral Officer at the IEC. Let's take a listen to this clip before we continue our conversation with